All right, we are continuing our study looking at the life of David. This is David from the Bible, the famous David, and last week Pastor Josh taught us from the biggest story, David and Goliath. Now, David's life is characterized by high highs and by low lows. David defeating Goliath is one of the highest highs that David has, but not everyone is so impressed with David. Today, we're going to be looking at David the Fugitive. David the Fugitive. If you had asked me when I was young what I wanted to do when I was older, I would have said something like, I want to help people. Like, I want to make a difference in the world. If you'd asked me that when I was a teenager, I would have told you, I want to do something that helps people in real, tangible ways, like something that I can actually see and feel and experience. And if you asked me, Will, how are you going to do that? I would have gone, I don't know. Like, I'm not exactly so sure how to do that. And so I didn't know for a long time. I kind of bounced around. At first, I thought I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer, but then I realized that wasn't really the best fit. Then I thought that I was going to join the Marines like my grandfather, and so I had visited a recruiter, but that wasn't really the best fit. Then I thought I was going to be a firefighter, so I started volunteering, but that really wasn't the best fit. I thought I was going to be a police officer, so I submitted my application, but that wasn't the best fit. I started working as an EMT on an ambulance, but that wasn't the best fit. So I went to school, got my nursing degree, started working as a nurse, but that wasn't the best fit. And now I'm a pastor, and that wasn't the best. No, I was kidding. I didn't really know. Like, I knew the right thing. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know the right way to get there. I knew the right thing, but I didn't know the right way. And I know that's not just a problem that I have. Like, I know there's many teenagers out here that are still dealing with that same problem, that you kind of know like what you want to do, but you don't know the right way to do that thing. But it's not just thinking about college or thinking about school or thinking about what you're going to do in the future with your life. I think we all kind of struggle with that. Because the truth is we all kind of want the same thing. Like, deep down, we all kind of want the same things. Like, we all want to be happy. We all want to be loved. We all want to feel like our lives are making a difference. We all want to have community. We all, deep down, we kind of all want the same things, and those are good things. Those are the right things to want. But the problem is, we don't really know how to get there. We don't know the right way. And the beauty and the complexity of life is that there are so many different ways to go about getting the same kind of right things. And we know that some of the right things, like there are some ways that are not right? We may want a right thing, a good thing to like be able to be supported and to have enough money to eat and to have resources. But we know that if we rob somebody else to get that, that's not the right way. So we want the right thing, but we know that that's not the right way. And when we want the right things, but we go about it the wrong way, it takes those right things and it makes them into bad things. So what do we do? Like, how do we know what the right way is? Now, maybe we just do what we think is best. Like what we think is best at the time, what we feel is right. Maybe we do what our parents have told us or modeled for us. Maybe we look and see what our friends are doing and telling us. Maybe we do what society tells us is the right way. But I don't think that I have to tell you guys that that doesn't really work. Like that doesn't really work, because I don't know about you, but like I don't think that I can be the best judge of the right way, because I do some really dumb stuff sometimes. Like, I do some really dumb stuff. Like, I don't know if I'm the best judge of how to figure out the right way to do things. And I love my parents, and they're good parents. But as I get older especially, I'm like, they did some stuff that I'm like, I don't know if that was the right thing, if that was the right way. And I love my friends, but a lot of my friends are kind of goofy. Like, I don't know if I want to do things the way that they are doing things or telling me to do things. And I like society. Society is good, but society also does some things that I think are like maybe not the best, that I don't really like. Like no matter how hard I try, like I just don't really like Taylor Swift. Like, I'm sorry, like I just can't, I know I just can't do the baggy jeans. I know it's wrong, but I just can't do it. There's some things that society tells me, and I'm just like, I just don't think that's the right way. So how are we supposed to know? And that's what David is going to show us today through his life. We're going to pick up right after he's defeated Goliath. So we're going to start in 1 Samuel chapter 18. 1 Samuel chapter 18, verses 6 through 9. When the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, after he's defeated Goliath, The women came out from all the towns of Israel to meet King Saul with singing and dancing, with joyful songs, with timbrels and lyres. They're having a big celebration. It's a party. Oh my goodness, we defeated Goliath. We've defeated the Philistines. This is awesome. They danced and they sang. They said, Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands. But Saul was very angry. This refrain, the song displeased him greatly. He's furious. He's not happy. He said, they have credited David with tens of thousands. And he thought, but me with only thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that time on, Saul kept a close eye on David. David is a celebrity. He's the hero. And Saul is very jealous. It's making him angry and bitter. He's starting to get paranoid against David, and he's already starting to feel like David might be trying to steal his throne and take his kingdom from him. And so Saul comes up with this plan to get rid of this David problem. He says, all right, I'm going to offer my daughter for David to marry if David can kill 100 of the enemy Philistines. He tells that to David. David says, okay. And he goes and he kills not 100, but 200 of them, comes back and marries Saul's daughter. This doesn't make Saul very happy. In fact, he gets even more mad. He's like, this guy's out of control. He's so powerful. Clearly God is on his side. The people love him. And now my own daughter loves him. From that time on, Saul is completely angry at David. He hates David. He comes up with a plan to get David killed, but David actually becomes really good friends with King Saul's son. His name is Jonathan, and Jonathan actually gives David a heads up. He says, my dad's actually pretty mad. He's trying to kill you. And because of that, David escapes that. Saul's not deterred. He comes up with another plan to try to kill David, but this time his own daughter, David's wife, gives him a heads up, and David escapes that murder attempt too. That time, David's like, that's enough, and he goes on the run. That's when David becomes a fugitive, and Saul starts hunting him. So David is on the run, and he's going throughout all these towns and villages on the run from Saul, and over time, he starts gathering to himself these people. They're kind of like the outcasts. They're like the dregs of society, these guys that nobody really respects, the lower rung of society. But over time, he gathers around 500-600 of these people to himself. And under David's excellent leadership, they actually become a pretty powerful fighting force. And while they're being pursued by Saul, they're actually fighting off the enemy Philistines. But Saul hears about this, and he's not too happy. He thinks that David is trying to grow an army to take his throne by force. It makes him more paranoid. David eventually comes to this town, it's called Nob, and he has a conversation with this priest named Ahimelech. And he asks Ahimelech to provide some food and some water and some resources for himself and his men. He doesn't tell Ahimelech this drama that's happening between him and Saul. He's trying to protect him. He doesn't tell him the drama. So Ahimelech gives him the water, gives him the food, and David also asks for a weapon. He doesn't have a weapon of his own. Ahimelech, being a priest, is like, well, the only weapon we have is actually Goliath's sword. It's like on display like at a museum, and David takes that. Meanwhile, Saul is getting more and more paranoid. He's getting more and more upset. He gathers together his top advisors in a room, and he has this conversation with them. He said to them, listen, men of Benjamin, will the son of Jesse, will David, give all of you fields and vineyards? Will he make you all commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds? He's saying, is he going to give you something better than I can give you? Is that why you're betraying me? Has he bribed you? Is he giving you something more than I can give you? Is that why you have all conspired against me? No one tells me when my son makes a covenant with the son of Jesse. None of you is concerned about me, or tells me that my own son has incited my servant to lie in wait for me as he does today. Saul's getting more paranoid. He's pretty toxic here. He's like gaslighting his own men. He's telling them like, no, you guys don't care about me. You're conspiring against me. You turned my own son against me. He's getting more and more upset at his own people. He's getting more and more paranoid, and he's gathered together these people. He's trying to fix this David problem when a man named Doeg approaches the king, and he says, actually, King Saul, I know where David went. I saw him talking to the priest Ahimelech, and Ahimelech actually helped him. He gave him food, gave him water, and he actually gave them a sword. Saul hears this, and he's furious. He gathers Ahimelech, all of Ahimelech's family, all of the men, all of the priests of the entire town of Nob together, and he confronts him, and he says this. Saul said, now listen, son of Ahitub, which means Ahimelech. Ahimelech answers him. He says, yes, my lord. Saul said to him, why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, you and David, giving him bread and a sword, and inquiring of God for him means praying for him. He says, why are you helping him? Why are you giving him food, water? Why are you praying for him? So that he has rebelled against me and lies in wait for me as he does today. Ahimelech answered the king, who of all your servants is as loyal as David? The king's son-in-law. He's saying your son-in-law, captain of your bodyguard, highly respected in your household. Was that day the first time that I inquired of God for him? Was that the first time I prayed for him? No, of course not. Let not the king accuse your servant. Don't accuse me or my family, for your servant knows nothing about this whole affair. He says, I don't even know what's going on. But the king said, you will surely die, Ahimelech, you and your whole family. Then the king ordered the guards at his side, turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because they too have sided with David. They knew he was fleeing, yet they did not tell me. But the king's officials were unwilling to raise a hand to strike the priests of the Lord. They wouldn't do it. Then the king ordered Doeg, you turn and strike down the priests. So Doeg the Edomite turned and struck them down. That day he killed 85 men who wore the linen ephod, which means they were in their priestly gowns. They were completely unarmed. He also put to sword Nob, the town of the priests, with its men and women and children and infants and cattle and donkeys and sheep. He killed everybody in that town. This is hard to read, and this is heavy. Saul has gone so far off the deep end that he's willing to kill unarmed priests of the Lord. His own men won't do it because they're like, these are our people. Why would we attack our people? His guards knew that to kill a priest of the Lord is to attack the Lord himself. It's to completely disrespect God. So he has this man do it who isn't an Israelite. He's a foreigner. He doesn't worship God, and he's all too happy to do it. I think this is here to show us that it's not just Saul being paranoid about David taking his throne. He has completely turned his back on God. He's completely gone off the deep end. One of Ahimelech's sons escapes this slaughter and goes to join David's party and tells David everything that's happened. So David continues on the run through the wilderness, through towns, him and his men on the run, and they finally end up meeting Saul face to face in a way that nobody expected. And for right now, I want you to picture with me that you're David. Put yourself in his shoes for just a second, because this is so important. You have been on the run from the king, your father-in-law. You've had to leave your family. You've had to leave your wife, your friends, everything you've known. Now you've just got these ragtag group of guys around you, while the whole army of the king of Israel is against you. The king has destroyed people and entire villages if they even help you. And now The king and his army, 3,000 of his men are right now at your footstep. You can look out in the hills and see it covered with thousands of the army of Saul. And they're knocking on doors, they're looking behind every bush, they're checking in the caves, and they're looking for you, and you and your men are trapped. You go to hide in a cave, you're in the very back of the cave with your men, trying to be as quiet as possible. And as you're hiding there, you start to hear footsteps in the cave coming towards you. And your heart starts to beat quicker, and you try to get a better look of who's coming in. You think maybe it's a scout, and you notice as they're coming closer, you get a better look at them, that they actually start to squat down to use the restroom. And you're like, okay, but as you're getting a closer look and creeping closer, you can't believe your eyes, and your heart starts thundering, and you get a lump in your throat, because that's not a scout in front of you, that's the king. And he's alone. Saul is in the cave, alone out of all the caves. He's standing there in front of you, and your man grabs your shoulder, grabs your arm, whispers into your ear. He says, "The Lord has delivered your enemy into your hand." What would you have done? I know what I would have done. And what I would have done is not what David does. Because David creeps closer. Saul's completely oblivious. He gets so close that he cuts off a piece of his king's robes and holds it in his hands, and then something shocking happens. Immediately, he feels guilty, and he orders his men not to attack Saul. Why? Why? Why is David feeling guilty? Isn't he justified? I mean, this is basically self-defense. He's been hunting him down to murder him. He's been attacking him. In fact, David knows that if he kills Saul, he's going to become king. And that's what God told him would happen, that he was going to be king. So he knows that the right thing is for him to be king. He's completely morally justified. And it looks like God has provided a miraculous way for him to take revenge on the enemy. What are the chances that he comes into this cave? But instead, he feels guilty. And I have to imagine that as David looked at that robe, the symbol of power, it's like the crown, he looked at it and he must have thought, not like this. Not like this. This is the right thing for me to be king, but this is not the right way for me to be king. So Saul's completely oblivious. He gets up to leave the cave, and David says, "My Lord the king." And when Saul looked behind him, David had bowed down and prostrated himself with his face to the ground. He's literally on his face before Saul. And he says, "Why do you listen when men say David is bent on harming you? This day you have seen with your own eyes how the Lord delivered you into my hands in the cave. Some have urged me to kill you, but I spared you. I said, I will not lay my hand on my Lord because he is the Lord's anointed. See, my father, look at this piece of your robe in my hand. I cut off the corner of your robe, but did not kill you. See that there is nothing in my hand to indicate that I am guilty of wrongdoing or rebellion. I have not wronged you, but you are hunting me down to take my life. May the Lord judge between you and me, and may the Lord avenge the wrongs that you have done me. But my hand will not touch you. As the old saying goes, from evildoers come evil deeds, and so my hand will not touch you." David says, I'm innocent, and I've proven it today. But notice that David doesn't kill Saul, not because of Saul, but because of his respect for the Lord. It's not because of David, but it's because of his respect for the Lord. David trusted the Lord to be the one to judge Saul, and David trusted the Lord to be the one to avenge Saul. He says, I'm not going to do it in my way. I'm going to let the Lord do it in his way. That's one of the key differences between Saul and David. David's trust in God was so great that this psychotic king who's trying to murder him is helpless in front of him, and he doesn't attack him, even though he's completely justified. It would have been so easy for him to do that. And Saul's trust in God is so little that he's willing to kill an entire village full of priests of the Lord. David trusted God to do things in the right way. David wanted the right thing, but he wanted to do it in the right way. Now, let's zoom out a little bit from David, because this is so important, and this is going to be so helpful to see. One of the devils, one of the enemies, this force of destruction and evil in the world, one of his oldest tricks is to try to get us to do the right things in the wrong way. The right things in the wrong way. He's been doing it since the very beginning. Back in the garden, chapter 3, Genesis, with Adam and Eve in the garden, the enemy took the form of a snake. Adam and Eve wanted wisdom. That's a good thing. That's the right thing to want. But the serpent said, don't do it God's way. Do it this other way. Take a bite of the fruit. And they did. They didn't do it the right way. They did it the wrong way. David in the cave could have taken the right thing in the wrong way and killed Saul. It would have been so easy. And in Matthew chapter 4, Jesus himself goes to the top of a high mountain. The devil takes him there himself, shows him all of the kingdoms of the entire world, and says, all of this can be yours if you bow down and worship me. It's the right thing for Jesus to be king of the world, and he will be. But the wrong way to do that is to worship the enemy, and the right way to do that was to go to the cross. Here's the key thing if you don't remember anything else. Please remember this. Do you see what connects all of these things together? Oftentimes, the easy way is the enemy's way. And the hard way is God's way. Oftentimes, the easy way is the wrong way, and the hard way is the right way. That's so important. It was way easier for Adam and Eve to take a bite of a fruit and gain all of the knowledge of good and evil in 1 second than learn from God about wisdom. It would have been so easy for David to kill Saul, take the easy way out. And it would have been so easy for Jesus to worship the devil and not have to suffer and be mocked and be tortured and die on a torture device and go to the cross. Here's the thing, friends. If you're here today and you're just like trying to figure out, you're like not so sure about this Jesus guy, like we're glad you're here. I'm worried for you. Because how are you supposed to know the right way? Do you see how sneaky the enemy is? That he can take things that are good and we think we're doing good things, but really he twists the good things and turns them into bad things. The enemy takes good things and makes them bad. The enemy can take you wanting to do well at your job, to succeed, to grow up the corporate ladder, which is a good thing, it's a right thing, it's not bad, but he can have you do it in the wrong way, to where you cut corners or neglect your family, or you make that your entire identity, and all of a sudden he takes this good thing and he twists it into this bad thing. He can take a good friendship that you have, which is good and right, and turn it into adultery. The enemy takes good things and he twists them into bad things. You know, if you're here today and you have a relationship with Jesus, I'm a little concerned because I think that we're the greatest victims of this. We fall into this trap the most. Far too often, we think that the easy way means that it's God's way. Far too often, we have circumstances in our life, or we have an option of things to pursue, and we think that because the option's there and because it's easy, then it must be what God wants for us. And it's not true. Making things easy isn't really in God's playbook as much as it is in the enemy's. Sometimes we can lie to ourselves and we can believe that the thing that we want, it may be the right thing that we want, but if we go about it the wrong way, it can turn into a bad thing. Because oftentimes living life and choosing the Jesus way brings us into being uncomfortable. It brings us into hardship. This shouldn't be a surprise to us, Christians. We believe in a God who became a man whose way led him to death. And he tells us it's going to be the same for us. So be very careful when you're thinking about things that you want, whether it's happiness or joy or a relationship or a job or these life decisions that you're making day to day. Don't let what feels good and easy be the thing that convinces you to do that thing. But instead, look to see what God has to say about how to live our life. And here's the truth, guys. I really believe that if you have a relationship with Jesus, most of the time, this isn't a knowledge issue. We know what the Jesus way is. We know how to achieve the right thing. It's not really a knowledge issue. It's not something that can be fixed with a Bible study. Really, it's a trust issue. We don't really believe that God has what's best for us. We don't really believe it. And so we get scared to do the thing that moves us towards being uncomfortable or towards hardship. But here's the beautiful thing. The enemy takes good things and makes them bad, but God takes bad things and makes them good. He can take hardship in your life or being uncomfortable, and he uses that to grow us closer to him. He uses it to bring about good things. The best thing that has ever happened is Jesus dying on a cross, and that looked like a very bad thing. But because of that, we can all have hope. We all have the hope of eternal life. And it's the same thing in our personal life, whether that's tragedy that hits our life or hardship that we walk into, God can take those things and make them into good things. Isn't it true that when you feel closest to God is when you go through hard times? Isn't that true? So then why do we think that the easy way is the right way? Going through hardship brings us closer to God. So maybe if there's a relationship in your life that you're trying to pursue, don't do it in the wrong way, but wait, even if that means that you might be lonely. If you're worried about money, Donna gave us a great testimony, not hoarding that treasure, but giving it to people who need it now. If you're struggling in your life, not doing something easy just because it's easy, but doing things the Jesus way, even if it's hard. Let me ask you this question. Is there something in your life that you want or that you're pursuing that is the right thing, but you're doing it in the wrong way? Is there something in your life that you're taking the easy way out on? You know, I wonder what your life would look like if you trusted God enough to let him tell you the right way. You know, we don't have to guess. We don't have to wonder. We don't have to try to figure it ourselves or look at what our parents did or look at what our friends are doing or look at what society tells us. Jesus tells us the way to live a life, and he shows us how to live a life so that we can get the things that are the right things. Let's be people that pursue the right things in the right way.